I love playing poker, Scott. I actually have a group of friends. We go to yoga every Sunday. The wives have called it broga. And because we go to yoga, we also have to do manly things like play poker. And I've never around that poker table started talking about poop. But I feel like maybe I need to because maybe there's a business idea there. And I'd love to hear, okay, what is this origin story of Throne Science having to do with poker and such?
Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me on the show. And to your question, my co-founder Tim and I first met back in 2021. He had moved to Austin as part of the COVID diaspora, leaving San Francisco. And literally, the first time we ever met was at a poker table, talking about startup ideas you'd love to start but wouldn't want your name associated with. And so, it's a bunch of guys playing poker, and most of it's sex, drugs, rock and roll, vice industry type stuff. And Tim, my now co-founder, was like, this is also juvenile. The honest, authentic answer to this question is smart toilets. Because I've been thinking about this since college. This is inevitable. This is the sci-fi future. People will obviously want to measure what's happening in their gut health and hydration. And I was like, that's brilliant. Clearly, you would name that company Throne. And for the first 2 years, we treated it like, an album name, where you go buy the domains and, that's a great album name, but I'm not going to be the one to write it. And fast forward 2 years later, Tim and I had ended up working together, really enjoyed working together, and we're looking for what comes next. And called my mom, who's a geriatrician, so like a primary care physician for, people age 65 up in New Mexico. And asked her, Mom, is there any medical utility to looking at people's waste? And she had a lot to say about that. It was a 45-minute phone call. But most memorably, she goes, honey, there's a joke in the field of geriatrics that all old people talk about is their kids, their meds, and their poop. And it's so true that in my practice, uh, I no longer give my patients my phone number because they send me so many pictures of their poop. And Tim and I had a similar laugh, but then we kind of walked away from that like, wow, that's really interesting. And it kind of inspired us to look at this idea in a whole new light. And we realized, like, you have 30 devices to choose from when it comes to tracking sleep and cardio and respiratory rate and metabolic health, but nothing looking at your gut health or hydration or prostate health on a daily basis, despite the fact that there are, tens of millions of Americans affected by conditions of these systems. And, ultimately, you have a 1 in 10 lifetime risk of being diagnosed with a cancer of the lower GI tract or urinary tract. And so the vision for Throne is not just to build a wellness device that tracks your gut health and hydration and prostate health and gives you coaching on a daily basis to help you improve your health on a, day-to-day but then ultimately to build the first continuous cancer screening device that's looking for those early signs of cancer as which are microscopic blood in your stool or your urine. And so that was 3 years ago. We just launched our first product 2 weeks ago, and we're marching towards that vision state of the product that is able to do the cancer screening.
Wow. I think I was just talking about this with some friends. I might not be talking around at a poker table, but I will say, when I getting older, there are things that I talk about with my friends: back pain and poop. And like, especially when we're going to the restroom when we're traveling a lot, it's like everyone's like, I haven't gone for 3 days, and you're like, what are you talking about? That doesn't sound very healthy at all. Like it's the and uh, I think I also there was like that stat, you would know this more than me, but it's just the colon cancer is like the number one cancer that's impacting our youth today, or something like that.
It's, yeah, number one cancer killer under 50.
Wow. And we need to talk about this more. And yeah, you're right. There are no trackers. So you had there's some like aspects of this in your world, right? You had the idea, you have some gut health in the family, if that's the right way to say it. And like, but what about like where did the founder come from? Where's that entrepreneurial
Yeah.
spirit or fire?
Um, so like, people joke about like, oh, this person was like born in a lab to do this thing. Like that, like is literally me. So both my parents are doctors. My dad's also a medical device inventor. He named his first company after me. It was inspired due to complications at my birth. That's when he first started doing medical devices. It's called Scott Laboratories. It's still around today, 32 years later. And I spent most weekends of my childhood in that laboratory, hanging out with him and his engineers while he was trying to get the company off the ground. And that's where I developed, just fascination with engineering, uh, and how things were made. And, I was just raised with being the son of two doctors and appreciation for health and the human body and physiology and medicine. And so I studied mechanical engineering undergrad, just knowing like ultimately I'm going to go into entrepreneurship. I wasn't sure what it was going to be. I actually thought for the longest time I wanted to stay far away from healthcare because, like, that's their thing. And I wanted to go do my thing. And and that fateful conversation with Tim kind of led me back into the family business. But in hindsight, it all makes perfect sense. But at no point in my life did I tell myself I wanted to be a poop scientist. I thought I was going to be an astronaut.
Hmm. Wait, okay, so hold on now. Rewind. Astronaut. So go back. We're studying mechanical engineering because you knew this might be something that you do. You weren't exactly sure what yet. Like, please take me through some of these career choices, life choices that led you to, not being in space yet, right? Because yet. I did
Yeah,
just
yeah.
watch Hail Mary, if anyone listening to this in the movie theaters. So I feel like you always have the opportunity. It might show up.
I say it a lot. I plan to go to space twice in my life because I don't think once will be enough. But yeah, so I studied mechanical engineering. I did a summer at SpaceX going into my senior year. And that was an amazing summer. Learned a lot about myself, which is most significantly that I did not want to be an aerospace engineer for a career. I really loved my time at SpaceX. I loved the people I was working with. I loved the problems we were working on. The only problem with it that I saw was that it was a fairly predictable career path. Like, it's a 4,000 person company. Any company you join that's that big has a pretty clear hierarchy. And you're, engineer one, engineer two, junior engineering manager, junior, senior engineering manager. And I wanted to do something that was more fast-paced and more entrepreneurial. And that same summer, I spent a lot of time in San Francisco, uh, and got exposed to, you know, SF style entrepreneurship and got to see what a real startup was and, like just how quickly things moved felt much more my speed. And everyone's very passionate about what they're doing. They're working long hours. They're, just very smart. And I was like, I love that. I love feeling so strongly about what you're doing that you can't stay away from it. And so I came back to Austin, started interning at a GovTech startup. So I studied public policy kind of as a minor in undergrad. And so I found my way into this GovTech startup and fell in love with startups. And so I was, there for not too long. I got recruited to join Keller Williams, which is a big residential real estate brokerage headquartered here in Austin, but they have like 200,000 agents around the world. And they were building all of their own tech in-house. And so I got recruited to join them as a product manager, which was my first time doing that role. And like that role was very fun because as a product manager, you don't have direct authority over anyone on your team, but you are the manager of the product. And so you have to, you know, negotiate with the business leaders and negotiate with the design leaders and negotiate with the engineers. And you have to ultimately shape the product through soft influence, right? Like you're not dictating to people, this is how it's going to be done, but you are ultimately responsible for what gets built and how it's used. And so you're kind of central to everything and you learn about, you know, not only how to build a product that people love and use and, serves the business, but you also have to learn how to navigate a business.
Hmm.
And I really loved that position. And then I got recruited to another startup called Esper. They were building and still are building GovTech software. So at that point, I had strong opinions about GovTech and I had some product management experience. And I got to go marry those two at Esper. And I was their first product manager. That was co-founded by Joe Lonsdale, the billionaire founder of Palantir and Adapar and 8VC. So it was just like a very cool experience because it was a small team. but with very, very, very high caliber people in every role. And I got to be a part of their early success. And then I left to go start my own startup, which is a credit card to measure and offset your carbon footprint. In hindsight, terrible idea. Don't go build credit card companies. But, there was one investor as I was pitching him, he stopped me and he goes, Scott, this is a terrible way to spend your life. Like building the credit card software seems very compelling. Building the credit card program is a whole different thing entirely. And you don't want to do that. And in hindsight, he was absolutely right. And I reached out to him several years after the fact to tell him, like, hey, most people did not have the candor to tell it to me straight, but I appreciate that. And that was a very painful chapter in life because that was I just called off an engagement and COVID hit, February 2020. I was living alone, building this company and living in this 500 square foot apartment, just deeply, deeply lonely. Like being a solo founder is something that people talk about openly as being a painful journey. Just my experience with it was that it made the highs less high and the lows even lower, right? Like not having someone there to share the victories with you feels terrible. And when you're alone, the losses are just debilitating. And so I had the opportunity to exit that company and soft landed it. And that was, again, just an incredibly painful process. I remember I was in the process of selling that company. I was on a walk with my dad. I was like in tears, just I cannot do this. Like I don't ever plan to start another company again. This is totally taken out of me. And he just like put his hand around my shoulder and was like, take some time off. Like don't take time off from work. Like go find another job, but take some time off from being the leader, right? Like go heal your soul and then get back in the driver's seat. Like it's okay to feel the way you feel now, but you'll feel differently in 6 months, a year, 2 years. And he was right. And so from there, I got recruited to join a company called Royal. They were selling music royalties on the blockchain. I knew nothing about music royalties or the blockchain, but my buddy was founding the company. He said, "Come be my first employee, and I'll be your first investor when you go start your next business," which was just an amazing vote of confidence and a sweetheart deal. So I took him up on that. They raised $70 million from some top tier investors, and that was an amazing ride. Um, I learned a lot about music royalties and crypto, and that's where I was working when I met Tim. And I met him probably 2 weeks after I joined Royal. We had that poker game. I recruited him to join me at Royal, and the rest is history.
Wow. I want to maybe go touch on that painful moment, but I think the thing that stands out to me the most, other than like this idea of building again, like closing a chapter and building again, is the fact that you were able to, like, the connections and the community that you must have had from the things that you've shared. From, oh, I just went to go work for this company, Esper. Oh, I just went to go work for this other startup called, Royal. And like, oh, I just created this business and then I soft landed. I was talking to this investor. Like these are phrases that people might be listening to this and you're like, how? Like, where did that come from, Scott? Like it's that's not exactly maybe it's more normal in
Yeah.
Austin, right? We're running around the lake path and we're like, oh, you're a founder, you're an investor. But it's not exactly like it's super unique. So how did you create this? It sounds like even, early on.
Yeah. It's a good question. And taking a moment to really think this through. So I think the short answer is, there's that phrase, skate to where the puck is going. And I put myself in positions to be exposed to the type of people that I wanted to be around. And, early in my career, when I wasn't starting my own companies, I was still very strategic about like I knew I wanted that product manager role because of the types of skills that it teaches, because it's a very natural next step for a product manager to go start their own company because you know how to manage an organization and you know how to manage influence within an organization. You know how to build the product. Like that is the heart of this company. And so I wanted to learn that skill set. I was very intentional about that. And then I was very intentional about socializing that fact to people. And I wasn't shy about the fact that ultimately I want to go start my own companies. I don't know what they are yet, but I am working in this position in this company to learn the skill sets required to go start my own thing someday. And I don't mean that in a competitive way. I am here to support you, my boss, the investors in this company. Uh, but while I'm here, I want to learn everything I can from you to go and become, the you of a different company.
Were those actual conversations that you had with the founders or people or your managers at the time?
Explicitly, of course. Like this is like I am here to learn. And ultimately, whether it's in 2 years or 5 years or 10 years, like I want to be in your seat.
What was the reaction? Like on the most positive end of things to maybe like the, oh, that might have gone better if you've had those experiences.
I don't think I've had anybody who responded negatively to that. At least not. Yeah, I think none that I remember, but I'll say another piece of this is just part of the entrepreneurial journey is learning to let the negativity wash over you and not hang on to it. Uh, there's always going to be negativity that's thrown your way, and you just kind of got to learn to roll with it and, not dwell on it. And I don't have a particularly good memory for those, but like, some of the more positive experiences is Esper was at the time I was maybe 26, 27, and the founder of the company was like 22 or 23. She was a smart, young, precocious, just incredible intellect. Uh, and, kind of humbling to be telling someone younger than you in your 20s, like, I want to be where you are when I grow up. And she took it as genuinely flattering as it was intended to be, right? Which is, I don't mean to compete with you. Like, I'm definitely not going to go start a GovTech company, but like, while I'm here, I want to meet your investors. I want to learn from you. Like, how did you court investors? How did you pitch this? How did you build this team? And she was the one who introduced me to this guy, JD, who's since become a friend, but she introduced me originally as a mentor. She was like, JD Ross was the head of product at Open Door. He is a friend of mine from when I lived in San Francisco. You should talk to him just about his product philosophies and frameworks. He's a very systems-oriented thinker and can just riff in ways that are so structured in the way he thinks about the discipline of product management. And so she set us up on basically like a phone date. It was like, JD, please meet Scott. Here's the context. Would love for y'all to chat about product. And, you know, I never expected. It's funny, JD, I didn't talk to him very many times, maybe two or three times ever. And I ran into him again maybe a week after selling Carbon Zero, the credit card company. I was at a like networking founders dinner event here in Austin, and he was there, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is our first time ever meeting in person." But I was like, "I know who you are. Like we've had several phone calls." And he told me, I just quit the last company I was at to go start this Royal. It didn't even have the name at the time. It was just, I'm going to go start a thing in blockchain selling music royalties. And I was like, that sounds absolutely crazy. What are you talking about? And he's like, let's grab coffee sometime. I'll tell you about it. And we stayed in touch. And I was like very intrigued. And, you know, maybe a month later, he made the offer to like, come be our first employee and I'll be your first investor. But like, I look at that whole sequence, right? Like I had evidently left a strong enough impression on him from our two or three conversations several years prior that he was willing to re-engage with me in that way that ultimately led to a pretty life-changing opportunity.
Hmm. Yeah, so by being open about what you want to create, you created the opportunities. And it's even longer, like later down the line. In reflection, can you pin any specific type of behavior or approach that might have led to his openness?
Yeah, but I think it's probably two things if I had to put words to it. It's number one is just like it's just earnest curiosity. Like I'm very earnest in my approach. I'll always tell people exactly why I'm there, what I'm looking for, what I'm hoping to get out of this conversation. It doesn't have to be transactional, but like you pair that with curiosity, right? Like, hey, this is where I ultimately want to be. How do I get there? How can you help me get there? What can I learn from you? Like, it's very rare that people meet that conversation negatively.
Hmm.
And then the other piece of it, I'll say too, is enthusiasm. I have one of my best friends has a phrase he says all the time, which is enthusiasm is the language of the universe. I believe in that completely in my soul. People sense enthusiasm. It's infectious. And so when you approach something, you're earnest, you're curious, and you're enthusiastic. That's that has served me well.
Leaning in with curiosity and enthusiasm. I mean, you're making an impact on the people around you. And to be curious, you have to be present. To be enthusiastic, you're probably creating an energy that is going to be remembered. And then when the time comes where you run into somebody again, uh, they'll remember you. And not just that, it sounds like you're open about the fact that you want to create, that you want to build, that you have this innate need to be an innovator, be an entrepreneur. And
Yeah,
so they have the thing that you are, and then you have the positive impact in the relationship. And I'll, put those together, and here you are.
yeah, I think that's exactly right.
Okay. You mentioned though that it can be really difficult, right, to get to hear, right, negativity, to have to, I think, shut down a company. It's like everyone has an opinion when you're a business owner. And investors, the people that you share that idea with, your relationships that think you're working too much. So uh, go back in time to that failure. It wasn't even a failure, right? To the time where you were too lonely. It was kind of like the end of a lot of chapters to a lot of people, and you didn't really have probably that community that you built so long to around you, especially because of COVID. What was the guiding light in that environment and situation that kind of kept you going, that allowed you to be enthusiastic if even you were able to at the time?
Mm, mm, that is a great question. I think it's like number one, I'm just guided by this unwavering belief that like everything is going to be okay. And I remember having a conversation with a friend years after the fact. He's a former NFL coach, friend of a friend I met. He's from my hometown, actually, Lubbock, Texas. And he famously got, I guess not famously, but just like as an NFL coach, anytime you get fired, that's obviously like front page headline news and, a pretty traumatic event to go through personally. And that happened to him. And one time literally the first time we ever met, actually, is he and I ended up sitting out on the back patio while everyone else was inside. And I was just kind of telling him this was maybe a year after everything had gone down. And I was telling him a bit of my story. He was like, man, you know, uh, the day after I got fired, I got a text from, oh gosh, who was it? I'm not a football guy, so I was forgetting the name, but it's who's the football guy? The quarterback, America's quarterback.
I mean, you're talking to the wrong person,
Okay,
but
perfect, great. Yeah.
it's
Tom
he won
Brady,
a lot
Tom
of
Brady.
things.
Yes,
There you
yes,
go.
that guy.
TB 12, right? Tied into
Exactly.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
He gets a text from Tom Brady saying, these things happen for us, not to us. And I've thought about that like every week since, just like, there are always going to be tough things that happen in life, in every chapter of life, in every season. And if anything, it just gets worse as you get older because you start to lose people you care about. And it's pretty much a choice to let things keep you down because it's inevitable. There's just so many metaphors around this, right? Like there's one of my favorite TikToks of all time is this guy talking about how, you're walking around with coffee in your cup and you bump into something and you spill coffee. And why'd you spill coffee? It's because that's what was in your cup. But, if you had milk in your cup, you just spilled milk. If you had juice in your cup, you just spilled juice. But the reality is, like, you're going to bump into things. Life is going to bump into you. And, like, what spills out of your cup is going to be what's inside you. It's going to be, you know, frustration and hurt and vitriol, or it's going to be, patience and kindness and love. And, like, your things are going to spill out of you. That is life. And you get to choose what spills out of you because you get to choose what's inside you. And I think about that a
Mm-hmm.
lot.
I want to build on this because I know it's a little bit outside of the meaning, but that's beautiful. I'm going to spill out love, kindness, joy, optimism, positivity if I am filled with that. That's beautiful. I'd also share, at least what came up for me is if I'm filled with the fact that I'm a builder, that I'm an innovator, that I'm creating this business, then when something gets disrupted, like I get sick or the world happens, some external process, like the world goes to war. I don't know, the world shuts down because of COVID. People decide not to spend as much, consumer spending habits change. Like the thing that's going to spill out, the thing that's going to get impacted is the thing that I care about, is the thing that I'm investing my time and energy into. And that's just proof in life that you're focused on the things that you care about. And of course, it's going to get disrupted.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Hmm. I've been saying recently, like I wake up and I have these quotes on the board that I want to remember. And one of them is imagine that love radiates from you like a light from a bonfire. And I have that up there because this idea of if I'm constantly radiating love, then what people feel for me is love. And even no matter what happens to me, I'm still the person that's like leaking love, right? So it's what you just shared, Scott, really resonates with me. Doesn't change the fact that sometimes things hurt.
Oh, of course not. Like you're gonna spill things out, right? Like it's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
how you show up when you're hurt is maybe like the most important like definition of who you are as a person.
Mm-hmm. So what's next, Scott? What's on your agenda of living life fearlessly and tackling the obstacles and opportunities that show up?
There's a lot next. So we just launched the company. I am very excited about that. It's amazing to see a product I've worked on for 3 years, and, like obsessed over, like being used out in the world and people are understanding it and it's become a part of their daily routine. Like that's amazing to me, right? Like this, it's really incredible. Like half of our users check the app 5 days a week. Like that's
Wow.
awesome. So,
Yeah.
the way I describe, my mission with Throne is like there's a small bubble of believers. And now my only mission in the world is just to grow that bubble until the whole world's inside that bubble. And so that's really my work focus over the next, you know, 2 years is educate the world on why tracking your gut health, why tracking your, hydration, why tracking your prostate health is important and can help you. And a lot of that's going to come down to telling amazing stories. We've got users writing in, sharing all these incredible things that they're learning about themselves. A lot of it's going to come down to educating around the science and the physiology of, when you see these things changing and you make these changes in your diet and your lifestyle, these are the outcomes that you can expect. And then the next big thing is, we want to launch the future version of the product that is the smoke detector for colon cancer, bladder cancer, kidney cancer. That's probably 2 years out. But we're actively working on that. what we see in the lab right now is incredibly compelling and exciting. And we know we have line of sight to making a meaningful product that will not only improve people's health, but one day save lives.
Well,
And then, personally, I've got a wonderful girlfriend, and next step is to make her a wonderful fiance and then a wonderful wife.
okay, should she not listen to this? Should we hide this recording from her?
No, she knows what's coming.
Okay.
I'm not exactly shy about my intentions with her.
Awesome. It's like, if you didn't know, you know now. Okay, beautiful. That is an inspiring vision and also highlights that there's an importance to being future focused. It's not what I created now, it's what we're building towards creating next. And having that intentionality, especially even in your personal life with your relationships, creates opportunity. And so I appreciate you sharing that intentionality in your journey with us today. And if you think about the fact that there are people listening to this that are probably going to be inspired by your journey, what is something that you want them to remember?
Hmm. I think one of my favorite lines I've heard in the last year is a friend of mine told me, entrepreneurship is a exercise in spiritual development and self-growth masquerading as a money-making opportunity. And that is so incredibly true. There's so much of this journey is becoming the type of person who can do the impossible things that you're confronted with on a regular basis. And the person I was 5 years ago could not have done the things that I do on a daily basis now.
Mhm.
And anytime I think to myself, like, I can't do it, you know, the next word is yet.
Mhm. Yeah, if you want to do something, all you have to do is just wait. I mean, not wait in terms of not taking action, but wait for the thing to happen. If you're actually doing the things. That was a confusing statement. Basically, though, it's if you believe enough in something and you take enough action to create it, eventually you're going to get there. It's just like think about the momentum and energy you put behind something. It doesn't matter how many times it doesn't work out. Eventually, you're going to hit the ball.
Yeah.
So, where can people find out more about Throne Science?
Yeah. So check out our website, thronescience.com. Check out our social medias. It's all just at Throne Science. And then I'm at Scott Hickle. Uh, you know, and then if you ever have any questions, like I'm one DM away. I love talking about
Mm-hmm.
this with people.
And please don't send him pictures of your poop.
And please don't.
Okay. Well, thanks for your time, Scott. It's been a pleasure,
Thanks so
and I
much
hope
for
you have an
having me.
awesome day.
You as well. Cheers.